If you're betting on the Super Bowl, you're in the right place. There's over 1,000 different Super Bowl bets you can make, but these 7 stand out the most. And it starts with the Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert, who has a receiving yards prop set at 45.5 yards. And now this week, Dallas Goedert's going to take on these Kansas City Chiefs linebackers, and Goedert is massive, right? He's 256 pounds, and the matchups that he'll have this week are against guys like Willie Gay, who are significantly smaller at 240 pounds. But more importantly, the Kansas City Chiefs linebackers over the last 6 weeks have allowed a 92% catch rate to the tight end position, which literally means they're allowing 9 out of 10 passes thrown their way to be caught by tight ends. And this is extremely important because Dallas Goedert was number 2 in the entire NFL in catch rate. Catchable target rate, Jalen Hurts was basically throwing him as accurate of a ball as you can see. And he was 3rd in yards after the catch amongst tight ends, but he actually led all tight ends per target with 6.3 yards after the catch per target. So what does this all mean? Well, he's getting very accurate targets thrown his way. His defenders now, these linebackers of Kansas City, are allowing him to catch them at an extremely high rate. And then after the catch, he's an elite player, which means he's going to get easy catches and pick up a lot of yards, which all this boils down to me taking the over 45.5 for Dallas Goedert's receiving yards. I actually have him projected for over 53 yards in the player props tool this week. Now, next up, I want to stay in Philadelphia and I want to target Dallas Goedert's quarterback. Now, of course, this means I'm looking at you, Jalen Hurts, and more specifically, his passing yards prop set at 238.5 yards. At some spots, it's set at 238 yards. Whichever one you're looking at, this is what I want you to know. For the Super Bowl this week, the Eagles are slight favorites and they have a 26-point team total. Now, in similar spots, as a favorite with a solid team total of 26 plus points, Jalen Hurts has averaged 270.5 passing yards on over 33 attempts per game. And this is a decent sample this year of 6 games now. This is how well he has done. And now he faces a Kansas City Chiefs team that, if you look down here, they've allowed over 4,100 yards to quarterbacks this year, passing yards. That's the 8th most in the NFL. All that to say, I like the more than the over 238.5 yards on Jalen Hurts. It kind of correlates with Dallas Goedert, right? If we're going Jalen Hurts over, odds are it's closer that you're going to see more often Dallas Goedert go over. So there's a couple of Eagles props. Now let's jump to the other side of this and look at Kansas City. Hey, how are you, Mr. Patrick Mahomes? I'm looking at you this week, and more specifically, believe it or not, his interception prop, I'm looking at it, it's at a half of interception. But which side do we like? The more then? Is he going to throw one or is he not going to throw one? Let's discuss. So this week, the Kansas City Chiefs heading into the Super Bowl, they actually opened up as 2-point favorites, but that quickly changed pretty significantly. Because now, wherever you look, they're coming in as 1.5, 2-point underdogs, basically at every single sports books you can find. It's mirroring each other at 1.5-point underdogs for the Chiefs. So they're underdogs. Okay. Well, this is important because since the start of 2020, so the last 3 full seasons, Patrick Mahomes has been an underdog 7 times. Only 7 times. But in those games, he's attempted 43.3 pass attempts. That's 14% higher than his average. And what has this resulted in? Well, Mahomes has averaged 0.86 interceptions in these contests, which is actually significantly higher than a half an interception. It doesn't seem like it, but in terms of percent differences, it is. And now this week, he has to face the Philadelphia Eagles' #1 pass rush, which, you know, when there's pressure, when your quarterback is rushed, it could lead to bad throws. It could lead to his arm getting hit, leading to an interception. And those pesky Eagles also have the #2 secondary filled with a ton of playmakers looking ball hawkers for interceptions. Now look, Patrick Mahomes is fantastic, but when you're going to throw the ball maybe 40 plus times in this game, it could be a deflected pass, a bobbled ball by a receiver, just a great play by a defender. All we need is 1 here. And based on my projection of 0.83 interceptions for Mahomes this week, I take the over, the more than Patrick Mahomes a half an interception. Slide back over to the Philadelphia side of the ball. I want to look at a running back here. And it will be the quote-unquote starter, although he's been losing his role as of late, in Miles Sanders. He currently has his player prop set at 58.5 rushing yards, but I just mentioned losing his role as of late. Now, he's still strongly involved, but check this out. His snap share, right? We could look at it from the start of the year. He's basically playing half the snaps. He starts playing 70+% of the snaps, a workhorse RB, but then look at this past month to month and a half. And now part of this is due to some blowouts, but it's also the fact that the Eagles are rotating through 3 running backs, not only in the blowouts, but in the first half when the games are closer. And you can see this based on the playoff snaps. It's actually Kenneth Gainwell who has the most playoff snaps right now at 57 for the Eagles running backs, then Miles Sanders at 50, and even Boston Scott, the RB3, at 38. And this is pretty similar when we're not looking at the blowout in the second half. In the first half run, Kenneth Gainwell still heavily involved. Now, Sanders did see 10 first half carries last week, but only 1 in the second half. Those 10 in the first half were basically because of the blowout. More specifically, this blowout right here of 28 points, and in the first half, it was 21-7, and pretty easy for the Eagles to start running that clock and getting a little bit smart in terms of game theory. Now, another thing to mention about Miles Sanders is in closer games like this one, just a 1 or 2 point spread either way, Jalen Hurts actually runs the ball more. He takes it into his own hands on the ground, especially maybe in the red zone or on third downs. And here's the actual proof of that. You can see in 10 close games this year, you see Jalen Hurts, he's running 12 times per game as opposed to 8.5 in non-close games, rushing for over 61 yards compared to just 27 in non-close games. And who is that taking from? The Eagles running back, specifically Miles Sanders. Sanders averages just under 50 yards in these closer games when Jalen Hurts is more involved, which his prop here is set at nearly 60. So because of that, I'm going to be taking the less than the under 58.5 rushing yards for the Penn State product, Miles Sanders. Now, I want to stay on Philadelphia for this next player. Let's target the receiving core. And I want to look at this big bad man in A.J. Brown, whose player prop is currently set at 69.5 receiving yards. It's at 68.5 in a lot of spots as well, so see where you can find it. Now, A.J. Brown this week is going to have a fantastic matchup, and let's look at just how good it is. According to Pro Football Focus, Brown has by far the best wide receiver matchup in the Super Bowl on either side of the ball against these Kansas City cornerbacks. And more specifically, if we look at this, Brown weighs around 230 pounds. He's going to have nearly a 40-pound advantage on all three of the starting cornerbacks. The outside cornerbacks and Jalen Watson, who's been fine but not great. L'Jarius Sneed, who's an undersized former slot cornerback, and now he's dealing with yet again another injury, a concussion, his third injury in the past month. And then there's Trent McDuffie, the slot cornerback, who's the most undersized of the bunch at around 190 pounds. All of these guys, he's going to have a huge size and leverage advantage over, especially downfield. And in similar matchups against smaller cornerback groupings, A.J. Brown averages 77.4 receiving yards, which is more than what his prop is at right now. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and take the over 69.5 receiving yards on A.J. Brown. If you find that at 68.5, even better. So arguably the best receiving option on the Eagles is A.J. Brown. And maybe it's not that much of a debate. How about the best guy on the Chiefs? Now, this isn't even a debate. It's pretty easily Travis Kelce, who this week right now has a receiving yards prop at 77.5 yards. Now, we mentioned earlier with Patrick Mahomes how they're going to be slight underdogs in this game, right? About 1.5 points everywhere you're seeing. Maybe you find it at 2 points in some spots. Now, that's pretty significant for Travis Kelce because since 2020, the last 3 years, Travis Kelce has been an underdog in 8 games, and he has averaged over 9 targets per game in these contests and 85.88 receiving yards. Let's call it 86 receiving yards, which is about 9 or 10 more than his prop is set at right now. Now, if you want to see what he's done this year as an underdog, well, he's been an underdog just one time. And it was in this game right here against the Bills where the Chiefs actually ended up losing that game. And Kelce in that game sees 10 targets, 108 yards in the game on 9 total touches. In the most important game, obviously the Super Bowl on the entire year, expect Kelce to be involved. The Chiefs wide receivers getting healthier means less double teams, which means we want the over the more than 77.5 receiving yards on Mr. Travis Kelce. Now listen up because this is really important. Patrick Mahomes has a receiving yard prop of 285 yards. But what if I told you we only need 1 yard for this to hit? Yes, if he throws for 1 yard in the Super Bowl, you win. How is this possible? Well, let me explain. Right now on Prize Picks only, Patrick Mahomes, they're setting his prop to a half a passing yard, and you can put up to $20 on this, so literally a free side of the bet wins for this one. Literally all you have to do is click the link in the description below. You'll get a free bet up to $100 when you use the code SAL22, SAL22, and then you take the Patrick Mahomes free play of a half a passing yard, you pair it with anything else you've seen in the video so far right now, and we all take our hands together and sing Kumbayas around the fire as we win that half a passing yard on Patrick Mahomes, because spoiler alert, this dude has averaged 308.8 passing yards this year. I think he's gonna throw for 1 in the Super Bowl. So if you actually want this Mahomes play and an instant free bet up to $100, we'll just click the link in the description below to join the countless others getting access right now. Now back to the Eagles side of the ball with Kenneth Gainwell, who currently has a prop of his rushing and receiving yards prop, right? The combination here set at 33.5 yards. I saw it earlier in the week at 35.5. Maybe you can find it there as well. Now Gainwell last week saw a season high 40% of the snaps. The week before that, 38% of the snaps. His snaps are actually up 50% the past 5 weeks. But a lot of this has to do with the 30-point blowout last week. Again, Miles Sanders only 1 touch in the second half led to more Gainwell touches. But in close games this year, Gainwell has only seen 1.7 receptions and 2.8 rush attempts, so like 4.5 total touches, 25% less than when the game is more of a blowout and he can see some more work. And if we do the quick math here, in these games, Gainwell averages 17 receiving yards and just 12.1 rushing yards, so 29 to 30 total yards. And now he faces the Chiefs, who allow the 8th fewest total yards to the running back position, so this is why I'm going to be taking the less than 33.5 rushing and receiving yards on Kenneth Gainwell wherever you find it. I also like his under 2 receptions if you can find that prop as well. Now these are 7 extremely strong bets for the Super Bowl that you should consider taking now. And if you want to see 10 more favorable bets that the sportsbooks don't want you to know about, well then check out this beautiful video right over here. And don't forget to get that free Mahomes play with the link in the description below.